Are you familiar with Callaway's product lineup for their irons this year? Right here in front of us, we have their X-Forge CB and their Apex Pros. I know there's been a lot of conversations out there already. They're not brand new to the industry, but have we ever really talked about the difference between the two heads? Me personally, I leaned hard on X-Forge CB this year. This is the forearm, which actually avoided my bag. However, 5-through pitching wedge has been a ton of fun to hit. I'm curious to know, have you tried the two of them yet by comparison? And if you have, or even in another in the Apex lineup, what's your preference? Let's go to the hitting bay right now, hit a few shots with each one, draw some comparisons, and see what we get out of it. And here we are in the hitting bay today with Callaway's X-Forge CB irons, as well as Callaway's Apex Pro irons. Now, I've been a huge proponent this year of playing X-Forge CB, had them in the bag for a while. Didn't spend a ton of time with Apex Pro, and the interesting part was I actually battled them earlier in the season and came out very favorable for X-Forge CB. I wanted to bring that to you guys today, hit them basically side by side, a couple of each as I step away to put this up. And I'll start with Apex Pro. We're gonna use Chrome Soft Golf Ball. Probably my choice if I were in there, if not LS. But I like the idea of Chrome Soft here. I've got the 7 iron, and we're gonna hit a few and talk through them. Well, that might be tough to beat right there. That is well struck from Apex Pro. This is tracking towards the hole, Josh, who's behind the camera right now. That's pretty tight. We've got Elevate 115 in the stiff flex. An interesting profile, probably not what I would pick, but I think really well suited for those looking for this kind of style. If I remember correctly, Apex DCB as well as Standard Apex for 21 are in fact all dealing Elevate as a stock shaft, which is pretty cool in that they come in different weights, which sort of promotes the style of player. Let's hit a few more. Yeah, okay, just under 7,000 RPMs to spin. I'm kind of excited right now doing this video. It's one that's very curious to me, so I might be a little bit juiced on the way I'm attacking the ball. I'm definitely looking to be more in that 6,000 range with my 7 iron because of the height I put on it. This is pretty controlled though, I like that. Playing a little bit of a fade on each one. As I move into my third shot, I'm gonna try and shallow it out a bit. Again, this kind of iron I think is for that kind of player who's looking to move the ball a bit. So let's see if I can actually do that. If that doesn't turn left, I'll be shocked. Yeah, that's perfect. So down the line and off left is my version of a draw. We've accomplished that beautifully. I'm going to assume the spin's dropped quite a bit. One of the big takeaways between the two heads, and I'm really curious for you guys at home who have hit them before, is what your thoughts are on sound between the two. Visually speaking, they're not that far off. You notice there's some conversations that are associated with some other Callaway irons that eventually made their way to the US, but these are my two preferred. So let's hit one more, see what we can accomplish with it. And I would imagine that's gonna look like the first couple. Very satisfying. I'm gonna hit at least a few with X-Forge CB. I'll probably talk through the sound differences between the two from my perspective as I do that. And then we'll go to table view and compare the two. And welcome back once again, this time with X-Forge CB from Callaway. Let me just take a shot here and we'll talk through a couple things. All right, first shot a little bit low on the head, which is not my typical miss. However, nice performance there. I don't have a ton to say about the product after a shot like that, but I do want to say that I have had this club in the bag this year. It's done me nothing but good things. I love the sound profile of this. Let's hit a couple more. Maybe I can find the right spot on the head to showcase that a bit. As promised, there it is right there. So really nice strong ball speed at 130. I had a little bit of a bag battle here in the THP Tech Studio earlier in the year between Apex Pro and X-Forge CB. Now, at that time, I think from an accuracy standpoint, I didn't see enough variance between the two to transition into Apex Pro. So I made the decision based on sound alone, pretty much, and dispersion, to go with X-Forge CB. Let's hit a couple more and see if I can confirm that later in the year. Yeah, another good strike there. Like I said, it comes down to sound for me. It might be a lot different for people out there. I just feel like that added bit of material behind the head really makes for a dense profile sound, and I kind of love it. It's also set up here with Project X's I/O shaft. This one's in 6.0, so that's 110 grams. Maybe a little bit of a better profile for me. And I could just be missing where my alignment is right now, because those are pretty tight together. Let's hit one more and see what it does. This is pretty good here. We'll watch it as it lands near-ish the hole, almost flags it. Yeah, I think we've showcased that there are two awesome irons, slightly different in profile. I think any one of you out there who've hit it would probably say something similar. But what I'd love to do is go to table view, talk through how it relates to my game, and then maybe see if you have some comparable thoughts for me. So as promised, here we are on table view. You see Apex Pro there in the red and X-Forged CB in the blue. A couple surprising results. I think the one thing that we need to reflect on here is I have had X-Forged CB in the bag for a lot of this golf season. It's not surprising that I'm getting the most out of it. One thing that's very curious to me is I had a little bit more dispersion around the club face with Apex Pro, but it actually maintained pretty well that exceptional ball speed number in and around 128 with my better strike, or my halfway decent strike, and then 130 with my best. And you compare that to X-Forge, 126.9 was my worst strike, so you do see a little bit of a dip there. But then I performed incredibly well with those last two from a personal perspective, which sort of presents that 130.1 and 130.5. I will say I do play a little bit of a strong loft, so that could be playing a role here, as well as the elevate by comparison to the I/O shaft that's involved. But I think overall, I love the idea that Callaway's promoted two clubs for a competitive golfer or a lower handicap golfer to make a decision whether they want to get that little extra bit of performance or chase a little bit of that technology that's sort of wrapping around the industry right now. And I think they've done it in two separate ways, but actually done a very nice job of creating two potentially positive profiles for that same style of golfer. Again, I'd love to know what you guys think, not only of what I've shown here today, but also your experiences with Apex Pro and X-Forge CB from Callaway. Do go ahead and like the video, give us a comment, and subscribe for more content in the future.